friends. My name is Frances Vicioso, and I'm the programming chair for the Kalamazoo Poetry Festival. I feel incredibly lucky to be able to introduce your host for this evening's program and my good bro, Mr. Ed Genesis. Ed Genesis is an artist, activist, organizer, entrepreneur, and community leader. He was born and raised in Gary, Indiana, and now resides in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where he has been for over 20 years with his wife, Vice Mayor Patrice Griffin, and their 3 children. This is his 4th time hosting the celebration of community poets, and it's fitting because Ed is the embodiment of the magic that happens when community and arts intertwine. We are honored to have him, and lucky for us, he has already expressed wanting to come back to host. I present to you the onlyest, Ed Genesis.
Thank you very much for that warm introduction, Frances. As fam, so got to shout out Frances. My name is Ed Genesis, and welcome to the Kalamazoo Poetry Festival 2021. Another virtual one, but you know how we did it last year. We're going all the way in. Before we get started, I want to introduce Monica Washington Padula, who is going to do a land acknowledgement. Monica Washington Padula is a graduate of Western Michigan University, where she received both her bachelor's and master's of musical classical piano performance. She currently serves as keyboardist and organist at Portage United Church of Christ in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Monica is a grateful mother of 5 and an anti-racism and social justice advocate and activist, working with organizations such as Black Lives Matter and the Michigan Coalition Against Racism in Sports and Media to resist racism and stereotypes towards the Black and Native communities. She has been reclaiming Native identity, Anishinaabe, Saginaw Band, Ojibwe, for about 7 years and identifies ethnically as Afro-Native. I would like to introduce Monica Washington Padula. Thank you.
Thank you for that great introduction as well. My name is Monica, and I'll give a traditional greeting in Anishinaabe Moan, which is the indigenous language of the people in this area. Ani Boju Kinawia, Monica Indishinakas, Lansing Indonjaba, Minawa Kalamazoo Ninda Nongon, Afro Anishinaabe, Saginaw Ojibwe Koendao, Miigwech Chimanado, Manda Minobamanazuan Minawa, Indanawa Maganadik. I hope. I think I said where I'm from. I was born in Lansing. I live in Kalamazoo now. I've been here for quite a long time. I identify as Anishinaabe, and that is the indigenous language reference for the original people in these parts. I am in and near my ancestral territory. And so the land acknowledgement will discuss a little bit of that chronology, as well as discuss some of the history involved in our movement and our forced movement. So Ani Buju, hello. This is a description of the indigenous people who lived and migrated through the lands of Kalamazoo, currently known as Kalamazoo, Michigan. Some Bodawadamic or Potawatomi also refer to this area as Gizigmaze, and both terms, Kalamazoo and Gizigmaze, refer to the river coming alive like a pot of boiling water that is overflowing. I give acknowledgement to the old ones who lived here before we had documentation and English names, the builders of the mounds, one of which still resides on the unceded Gun Lake Matchi-Benashewish Reservation, currently known as Bronson Park. Other mounds are noted to be under rivers in the area around Kalamazoo, as in Comstock. In 1795, Chief Matchi-Benashewish, an Ojibwe leader, signed the Treaty of Greenville. This served to establish a reservation where the Three Fires Confederacy of Anishinaabe, known as the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi, or English, Chippewa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi people lived and migrated in the Kalamazoo River Valley, with the primary village being at the head of the Kalamazoo River. It is noted that tribes such as the Grand River Odawa and the Saginaw Chippewa would migrate to winter here. In 1821, Chief Machibenashewish signed the First Treaty of Chicago, and after negotiations with leaders of the tribes, ceded most of the lands south of the Grand River, while the Machibenashewish band retained a 3 square mile reserve in what is present-day Kalamazoo. In 1827, the Treaty of St. Joseph was signed, which forced the Anishinaabe to cede the rest of the Kalamazoo Reserve, and many moved north to avoid forced removal out west. At the time, there were 4 to 5 consolidated settlements of Anishinaabe who lost their land, including tribes living in what is now Schoolcraft, River Rouge, River Raisin, and the removal of the reserves of the Nottawasepi Huron Band, who were pushed out near Athens, Michigan. In 1830, the Indian Removal Act was enforced, which was to clear the lands of Anishinaabe to make room for settler expansion and development. In 1833 was the Second Treaty of Chicago, which touched Kalamazoo by erasing the rest of the Machibenashewish Reservation and resulted in the removal of thousands of Anishinaabe, mainly Potawatomi, out west in what is called the Trail of Death. A plaque commemorating this removal, though from the settler view, is located in the train station downtown. Chief Machibenashewish did not sign this treaty, and those who refused to leave hid and moved either in southern Michigama or Michigan, or they moved north or to Canada to avoid being removed out west. In 1834, the Indian Reorganization Act was created to provide resources to reestablish tribal governments, to increase or somewhat return the Indian sovereignty that was disrupted and violated by the American government. However, the Bureau of Indian Affairs would only recognize one tribe for the whole Southern Peninsula and chose to recognize the Saginaw Chippewa tribe, which was historically to include the bands of Saginaw, Swan Creek, and Black River Ojibwe people. Due to much persistence and volunteering of those who were dedicated to reclaiming sovereignty, the following are the names and dates of Anishinaabe who reorganized and became federally recognized near their original lands. Pokagon Band of Potawatomi in Dowagiac, Michigan, was recognized September 21st, 1994. Nottawasepi Huron Band of Potawatomi in Fulton, Michigan, were recognized December 19th, 1995. Gun Lake Machibenashewish Tribe of Potawatomi of Bradley, Michigan, were recognized August 23rd, 1999. Kalamazoo continues to be a place of migration and settling for Anishinaabe as well as other diverse Indigenous identities. This acknowledgement serves to share the story of the history of where we lived and migrated, historically and presently, how we were forced to move or be removed against our will, and how we continue to reside near our ancestral lands as both recognized and unrecognized people, Indigenous to Turtle Island, or the Americas. May we continue to ponder how the use of this land respects, acknowledges, and returns sovereignty to its original caretakers. Chi-miigwech, aho, thank you very much. And this acknowledgement was prepared by myself, an Afro-Indigenous citizen with documented and family stories connecting to the historic Saginaw Band Ojibwe, Odawa, Blackfoot, and Choctaw peoples. Contributed to by the accounts of Linda Seibert-Kilborn, Rebecca Rupi, Frank Barker, and federally recognized Kalamazoo area tribal websites. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that land acknowledgement. That is very important, in my opinion, that we always acknowledge the fact that we did not just exist one day. This was inhabited by the natives and indigenous people. So thank you so much, Monica, for breaking that down for all of us to have more education and more knowledge, which lends to more compassion and more respect for where we are. Right now, we want to dive straight into it. This is the Kalamazoo Poetry Festival 2021. And this year, we're talking about From the Wreckage. And the Oxford Dictionary of Wreckage is something that has been damaged. It's the embodiment of something that has been damaged. So when we think about that, we have to think about the last year that we've been going through globally, the pandemic, of course, but then there's layers. And so we have an endemic of even gun violence that affected a lot of communities. And we learned a lot about, a lot more, should I say, about systems. And just even that introduction that Monica just put us up on is we are existing in wreckage. However, we have the ability of being like the phoenix, the mythical bird that rose from the ashes. We have the ability to rise from the wreckage, to look at the damage and assess the damage and say, what can we do better collectively and as community and as a world together? So with that, no further ado, I want to get straight into it. And we're going to introduce Sprout from Diatribe. Sprout, AKA KFG, is a Pisces, potpourri of queerness, an award-winning writer, Sonia Sanchez Langston Hughes Prize finalist, nationwide touring performer, somatic healer, and professional cartoon character. They are a nationally competing slam poet and the slam master of Grand Rapids, as well as the slam team coach. Sprout's poetic and community work invites the totality of self-to-all conversations, a phenomenon reflected in their life as a teaching artist of youth poetry nonprofit, the Diatribe, and developer of environmental justice poetry program, We Are Water. With no further ado, Sprout.
It strikes me how much this Zoom class looks like a quilt. As we pass the needle between us, from laptop to phone screen, football fields a space in between. We pass the needle back. Squeeze betwixt pixels, tiles stitched together, fallen faces of friends who hold our love, but we cannot hold, like butterflies pinned behind glass. But we pass the needle regardless, voice boxes pricked awake from long naps in isolation. Our tongues spill what their spools know, the names and faces of news stories and obituaries, grief slowly cinching its noose around your bed frame. Guilt is the black hole in your belly that sometimes makes you swallow the spiral loaded in your mouth. Depression sometimes makes me forget. Change is a god we haven't seen around in a while and only shows up uninvited. I have memorized the cracks in my bedroom walls where blue sky bleeds in. If hope is a muscle, Strength is made in tears and stitches, so when you are at your feet to bed, pass the needle with your muscle string attached. Please let us help lure the humanoid from your ocean of blankets. A student's voice breaks silence, answering the impossible question of, "How are you?" in a poem. Passing the tender ocean in a thin thread, luring a tendon from the deep end of honesty, and there is this feeling when the needle is passed, like a harp string struck, humming through the class, a feeling of warmth, much like embrace.
Thank you so much for that. I expect to hear a lot of amazing talent all night. It always is. This community is just full of amazing artists that share. I'm looking at my agenda and also a lot of other things, so I don't want anybody to see me looking off camera and feel like I'm not here. I'm 100% present and excited to be here. Once again, this is the Kalamazoo Poetry Festival 2021. We're going to keep it moving. I'm going to introduce Susan Ramsey. Susan Blackwell Ramsey is an award-winning poet and arts educator. Her poetry collection, A Mind Like This, was published by University of Nebraska Press in 2012. Susan is a recipient of the Prairie Schooner Book Prize in Poetry and the Majorine J. Wilson Award from the American Journal of Poetry. Give it up.
Hi, I'm Susan Blackwell Ramsey. 2 poems. Color Studies, Puce. Picture burgundy poured over chocolate, chocolate stirred into burgundy, the color, in fact, of a flea. Antoinette, only 20, at Versailles, among the women in laces and pale brocades. Picture the young queen gleaming in red-brown silk. The king walks in, laughs out loud, says, "A flea!" Catchphrase, in-joke, color of the season. It became the summer's uniform, in shades lighter, darker, called old flea, dead flea, flea's thigh. Like the fleas themselves and flower riots, it was everywhere that summer. Boredom is the curse of courts, and yet perpetual sparkle is so hard to maintain. There's war, intrigue, gambling, and fashion. On the whole, fashion is the least expensive, and has the advantage of reinforcing rank. Versailles knew fleas and fashion intimately. Ladies carried a slender ivory stick to slip under their towering coiffures to scratch what itched. Parasites live by taking from another. Fashion's a bitch, and color is fashion's bitch, and fashion distracts us from death by dying faster than we do. Even colors are mortal, can be born, murrey, mauve, avocado, harvest gold, puce. We survive them, look back and smile, so much wiser, more sophisticated. One day the king observed the queen's gray dress was the color of her powdered hair, and the next day puce was dead, queen's hair, the color of the moment. Vive la reine, vive her tortured hair, her fine white neck. Zipline, for Donna Efland. 5 years ago, they said she had 5 years. At Christmas, they told her it would be her last. She asked each time, flirted, bargained, asked again, gambler who stubbornly keeps playing red. I've never known her be on time before. Also, she's not behaving sensibly. squanders energy, then crashes, makes big plans for future dates she's not going to see. She's running out of runway and hasn't reached for the brakes. If I were in her place, I would be more... I know what I'd be. I'd be that zipliner who so took to heart the warnings not to come barreling into home that she started braking halfway and found herself dangling over rainforest. Prudent. Stuck. My friend's death says, "Be ready, he's on his way." Calls hours later to say he's had a few with the boys and really shouldn't drive. My friend's death calls her drunk at 3 a.m. to read the 10-page poem he's written for her. She can hear another voice in the background. My friend's death texts that before they can go out, he has to pay a bunch of parking tickets. Can she help out? She reaches for her purse. She's dying too fast, and each stage takes too long. This slow decline, this hanging over treetops, isn't her style. It would be more like her to say the hell with handbrakes, to be a bright streak over the forest dome, to scatter the bright ones waiting on the platform, laughing, whizzing full tilt into home.
Thank you so much for sharing, Susan. And we will just keep it going and introduce another amazing artist, another amazing poet. And this one is Linda Nemec-Foster. Linda Nemec-Foster is the author of 12 collections of poetry, including the critical acclaim The Lake Michigan Mermaid, which won the Michigan Notable Book Prize in 2019. She is the founder of the Contemporary Writer Series at Aquinas College. Her most recent book is The Blue Divide. I believe I may have mispronounced that. And so I'm hoping, Linda, you can catch that. If so, let's keep it moving. Give it up.
Hello, I'm Linda Nemec-Foster, a poet from Grand Rapids. As a matter of fact, I was that city's first poet laureate from 2003 to 2005. I'm the author of 11 poetry collections, including Amber Necklace from Gdansk, Talking Diamonds, and The Lake Michigan Mermaid, which I co-authored with Anne-Marie Ullman, and that was selected as a 2019 Michigan Notable Book. The poem I'm going to read for you today is from a new book that will be published in just a few weeks, and it's forthcoming from New Issues Press out of Western Michigan University. The title of the book is called The Blue Divide, and the poem I'll be reading for you today is called A Kiss is Just a Kiss from that book. It's about my mother. I think we all write about our mothers sooner or later, and this poem is about mine. My mother was obsessed with movie stars, old school, old time movie stars. So you'll hear about Jean Harlow, Greta Garbo, Joan Crawford, Ingrid Bergman. As a matter of fact, the poem begins with a great quote from the movie actress Ava Gardner. My mother loved to read about these actresses and actors in various gossip columns. And before the National Enquirer, there were such tabloid newspapers as The Confidential, The Lowdown, Hush Hush, Uncensored, and my mother just devoured and ate up these newspapers. She loved reading them. And you'll also hear about window wax. Back in the 50s, it was something like Windex, and you would clean your windows and mirrors with window wax. I also talk about Prussian bluing. It was a additive that you would put in your laundry, and it was all blue and would make the water blue, but it would turn anything whiter. So white shirts were just dazzling when you used Prussian bluing. So this is my poem. Again, it begins with this quote from Ava Gardner when a newspaper columnist asked her to describe show business. And this is what she said, quote, "It's the kissiest business in the world. You have to keep kissing people," unquote, Ava Gardner. A kiss is just a kiss. My mother, in her own words, didn't know much, but what she knew, she knew. How to darn a sock's hole until its universe imploded into a white dwarf of string theories. how to polish window wax into a mirror until it reflected a gaze more intense than Snow White's stepmother, how to magically stir the cauldron of laundry to transform Prussian bluing into a pure white shirt. And then her encyclopedic knowledge of movie stars. She never called them actors or actresses, but stars, as in the heavens, the constellations, the Big Bang. Her lessons were taught by chain-smoking gossip columnists. She pored over their theses, illuminated in the pages of Confidential, The Lowdown, Hush Hush, and Uncensored. My mother could tell you how Jean Harlow really died. It wasn't kidney failure, but she was poisoned by all that peroxide she used on her hair. How Greta Garbo brushed her teeth. She never used toothpaste, only salt. How Joan Crawford plucked her eyebrows. She didn't, enough said. My mother loved the backstabbing of it, the kiss and tell of it, the guilty pleasure of it. And when she read this quote from Ingrid Bergman, "A kiss is a lovely trick designed by nature to stop speech when words become superfluous," my mother, with her blue hands and absent husband, almost believed it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was awesome. It's always appreciative when someone can detail the different things. I love film noir, so that took me all the way into the space of that. And so thank you so much, Linda, for sharing that. We will keep it going. And this is how we survive, quote unquote, wreckage. And why we're speaking of wreckage, because we have community. And when you have community to lean on and amazing people from the community that you can look to for support, and just sometimes conversation, then that makes everything a lot better. And so we can salvage from the wreckage. Not that the wreckage is cool, but to be able to salvage from the wreckage and rise. And so with no further ado, introduce another amazing poet, another amazing artist.
Hi, my name is Julie Stotz-Gosh, and I'm the chair of the English department at Kalamazoo Valley Community College. I also coordinate our Visiting Writers series. The poem I'm going to read for you today is called Snowy Owl. Snowy Owl, did you appear in an Arctic dream, a polar morning of my imagination? Or did the vortex scoop you into its sub-zero hands as it rushed southward, freezing rooftops, lawns, and brown bent cornstalks in the field until finally setting you on the top branch of the ancient maple? Of course, I know you came here for your own reasons, promise of food and snowy expanses, but when I saw you against the crystalline sky through glittering frozen air and frozen eyelashes, it was hard to believe. Dreamy visitor, silent breath. The sun was encircled by a rainbow. You arched into the woods like a long white comma. I have been looking a long time for you, and with great stillness. Stillness of the polar week, sundogs, and creaking air.
Hi, friends. While Ed is going through some technical difficulties, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the next poem. So I am honored to introduce our community poem for this year. This is the second time that we're doing our community poem. And for those of you who don't know, the community poem is created by listening in on a conversation that is held with a variety of stakeholders from the community. The concepts and ideas that emerge from that gathering are compiled by the Friends of Poetry into a poem that reflects the thoughts of our community members. This year's community poem was written by Scott Bade, Robin Church, and Joe Gross. Reading the community poem this year is Joe Gross, Kathy Jennings, Scott Bade, Cameron Decker, Salvatorine, Robin Church, and Gabriel Giron. Without further ado, please enjoy.
Is the wreckage over? Which way do you turn to put yourself behind you? Because we are the wreckage. We are the flames in the house, the disease and the vaccine. The wreckage exists because we exist. The house, the flames, we're still in it. Where else would we go? And we have to find a way to work amid collapse. Like there's fire all around you, and you're pulling this piece of metal from the forge. You're shaping and reshaping, writing and rewriting the narrative of our destruction until it tells something new. Until each broken piece welds a whole story of how, by exposing ourselves to annihilation, we find what is in us indestructible. Of how we become the agents of discovery with a reach into the burning forge.
How did we get here? To where we're stuck in the mud. It's a puzzling place at times. Everyone sees themselves at the center of it. We want it assessed accurately, fixed immediately. We're super informed, but we're not super organized. Yet those of us on the ground are doing the work. And there's something really different, even with the root. It's a puzzling place at times. The haves and have-nots in Kalamazoo. There's too much money in Kalamazoo to have some of the needs and barriers that we have. And there is a certain amount of fatigue that kicks in after a while when the elected have said, through their actions and words, over and over again, we're not listening to you.
It's a puzzling place at times. They've somehow built this wall that people cannot see over. Kalamazoo, one of the most segregated cities in the country. Child poverty rates, some of the worst in the country. The wall is white supremacy. We're a work in progress, but I'm okay with that. I love Kalamazoo and the people and the connections that I've made. I appreciate that we're at least willing to shine a light on our flaws and say, hey, we got issues.
Do we throw out broken pottery? We repair broken pottery. The breakage is the history. History is breakage. Breakage is part of our art. Fix it now. Fix it now. Can't. Can't reap the fruits until you sow the seeds. Soil resists. Plow anyway. Power resists justice. Plant it anyway. I'm frightened. Plant it anyway. Things have happened for a reason, and this happened, and it is not all good. But I have learned to think, and I take the moment to strive. We can either live or live to be angry, and I got high blood pressure anyway.
I bring poems to the classroom. When I'm online with my students, I really have to act. I bring my poets. Kirk says, will we be okay? Will we be okay? Langston answers, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it, and splinters and boards torn up and places with no carpet on the floor bare. But all the time, I's been a-climbing on. My kids, go back to the poems. They never give up. So we say, we're planting together. We're all still here. We're all still hungry. We're all gonna be eating.
There are big leaps we have to take, like muscular heroes jumping through burning rubble to care for everyone we should. You always have to be greater than you are. Like Angelus Novus, our eyes are open, wings spread, but history keeps hurling catastrophe, wreckage upon wreckage at our feet. In front of us, the storm pile of debris grows skyward. We want to make whole what has been smashed, but we can't heal an open wound. There are parts we don't know or ignore. We have to acknowledge what's lying on the floor.
We have to speak it forward. We are continuously faced with these challenges. It is necessary for humans to make meaning in the personal quiet. Will our brains close? We can use these hurdles to grow or fold. Let's move on. Come to terms with what we took for granted and destroyed. Push through with sweat and strength the year we suffered, the world we will remake. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad I was able to catch that. So I have to apologize for I'm not sure what happened, but I was kicked out. I have support in the community though, so I was able to keep going. And speaking of community, we got to shout out that community point. I love when collaboration is the definition of community. And shouts out to Robin Church for that fly pea coat that you had on. I saw that. I like that. That was dope. We're going to keep it going. And I'm so happy to be in community with amazing people. So even when we have a technical glitch, the show proceeds. And so with no further ado, I would love to introduce KJ Strayer. KJ Strayer is a poet and textile artist, blurring and restitching binaries. Their first poetry collection, Afterward, was published by Dancing Girl Press in 2016. In addition to weaving words and threads, KG is the co-owner of Rose Gold Coffee Company in downtown Kalamazoo. With no further ado, give it up for KJ Strayer.
Hey everyone, my name is KG Strayer. I'm a non-binary poet, multimedia artist, and barista from Kalamazoo. If you're interested in checking out more of my work, you can head to kgstrayer.com. A little shout out to all the organizers and participants of the Kalamazoo Poetry Festival. Thank you for making it happen this year, even from the wreckage. Also a little content warning for this poem, cancer and surgery are mentioned. Root bound. I drive my mother to surgery to remove a tumor the doctor said was basically benign, but also we get there and everyone keeps saying carcinoid, like maybe he forgot the word benign in this context is only allowed one definition. The tumor is more or less tame. We wipe down her whole body with sanitizing towelettes and she says, "Don't look when I take my bra off, it will scare you." A hospital is a point of departure. Here we are, sanitary in the new year, glittering in iodine. No one is themselves inside a hospital, only a body, and the body's permanent record. It's here that I begin to practice not smiling at anyone. not moving out of the way in the elevator. There's a floor here surrounded by windows and greenery I can't bring myself to call houseplants. Full trees looming. I think I'm supposed to forget. I sit across from a gigantic money tree outgrowing its braid. Two little girls amble by with their father. One says, "Are these fake or real?" And her older sister tells her everything is fake. The ground is soil beneath the stamped concrete, and for a moment I think the hospital left a door open down into the earth. But I know plants like this only grow in controlled conditions. I saw the moisture meters in the pots upstairs, careful not to overwater. My friend who knows every plant's name and needs outside my doorstep is always insisting my houseplants need bigger pots. But some plants love for their roots to touch one another, crowd in tightly, root-bound, and describing this to her feels too sad. I sit alone in a waiting room for the doctor to tell me how the surgery went. He shakes my hand with a hand that has cut out a threatening piece of my mother, apologizes for my long day. He is the exception in that he is always himself and only himself in this room. And am I more or less of a daughter, more or less of a mother? She struggles coming out of the anesthesia, strangely soft and safe. She offers me her leftover saltines. Her beautiful signature is a messy scribble on the release forms. She doesn't remember talking to the doctor, so she asks me how the surgery went, if she's going to be okay. Sometimes the roots become so curled there's no soil left. Sometimes you need to break the pot to get them out. That's it for me. Thanks again, everyone.
Wow. Thank you so much, KG Strayer. I think I said KJ earlier, and I apologize for that. It is KG Strayer. And that was amazing. Also very touching. It was detailed and just, yeah, it took me there to the hospital room. Thank you for sharing something so intimate, but yet something so awesome as well. It truly was. We're going to keep it going. For those that don't know, if you're just tuning in, my name is Ed Genesis. I am the host for this evening. That's probably why you're seeing me talking a whole lot, but we're going to keep it going and let these amazing poets and artists continue for this evening. And with no further ado, I want to introduce Caitlyn Piatt. Caitlyn Piatt is a senior in high school, currently dual enrolled in KVCC with plans to attend Kalamazoo College this fall. Caitlyn began writing in middle school and has since explored short stories and poetry. Caitlyn is excited to continue developing their writing in the future and grateful for the opportunities to explore their creativity during the pandemic. With no further ado, give it up.
Hi, I'm Caitlyn Piatt, and this is Reassignments. We'll learn after the deadlines, and it will be a joke. We may find it amusing to have not known and gotten away with living in the meantime. I tend to believe everything. The option of believing nothing is tempting. However, oblivion tends to be viewed more positively than paranoia. Of course, nobody likes to be oblivious. Nobody can really dislike oblivion either. If you dislike the oblivion, then you aren't so oblivious anymore. Oblivion is a funny word. I'd place it on a plant, probably an ivy. We could sit and look at the oblivion traveling up the walls of our houses. Maybe we would laugh, recalling how contemplative we became before the oblivion was a plant.
Okay. Thank you so much. Shouts out to the youth. Get a shout out to youth. That was amazing. And to be dually enrolled at the same time in high school and KVCC with plans on further in college. I think that's dope. So shouts out to Caitlyn. Next, Elizabeth Kerlikowske. Elizabeth Kerlikowske is the president of Friends of Poetry and former professor of English at Kalamazoo Valley Community College. She is the author of 2 full-length books, 5 chapbooks, and a children's book. In 2017, she was awarded a Community Medal for the Arts by the Arts Council of Greater Kalamazoo. With no further ado, Elizabeth Kerlikowske.
There. Hi, I'm going to do a couple of poems. One of them I wrote because I was so bored with the traditional alphabet song, so I decided to rewrite it but use actual words in it, so you'll be able to hear the alphabet in it. Take the A train to the barbecue, don't have a seizure at the depot. It's easy in society to be an F, a G, H, a J. Walk to the K mark at the elevator. I debarked, I emptied my energy. Oh, say, can you see my PhD? Rescue me, or are you escaping into charity? You vehemently give double. You are troubled. Sense extinction in the skies. You are wise. It's the modern disease. And the other one is about one of my personal idols, Stevie Wonder, and it's called From Detroit. Nappy-headed, they said, for a jacket Stevie Wonder never saw. He's blind, you know, it didn't stop him. He's a genius, man, up there, into his blackness from both sides, a dark star, pulsating your tempo. Sing it, brother, straight from the heart. Steve Lamore, Stevie Wonder, from Detroit, to the world a gift.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Elizabeth Kerlikowske. That was amazing. And when community steps up and says that they have something to share, you will hear intimate things. You will hear things that make you laugh, things that make you think, things that touch your heart. And that's what community is all about. That's what surviving from the wreckage is all about. And with no further ado, I have to give it up. This one, it's my brother. It's my brother from another mother. This is Mr. Gabriel Jerome. Gabriel Jerome is an award-winning national keynote speaker and a poet who has dedicated the last 15 years of his life to helping others heal themselves through the art of writing, performance, and mindfulness. He is the co-founder and executive director of Speak It Forward Inc., as well as the lead facilitator of racial healing at Truth Racial Healing and Transformation, Kalamazoo. He is also my brother. I am co-director of Speak It Forward, and the work that we do, mentoring and working with the youth, is just, it's been very fulfilling and literally the most rewarding thing that I've done besides being a father. And it just gives back. So to be able to share space with this guy is just amazing. With no further ado, give it up for my brother, Gabriel Giron.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gabriel Jerome. Up until last year, I was one half of a group known as Kinetic Effect. Tragically, this last year has been one of the most difficult years of my life, and one of my best friends and my business partner for the last 15 years passed away. So it is my privilege and honor for me to stand on stage with him one last time in this video, sharing a reminder for all of us that sometimes you have to fail, trip, stumble, fall in order to get up, appreciate where you've been and where you're going. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kirk Vladimir.
My name is Gabriel Giron.
And together we are known as Kinetic Effect.
Now, most people have a fear of failure. But if we let fear prevent us from taking necessary risks in our lives, we miss out on the opportunity to live our best lives.
In fact, one of the greatest philosophers of our time, Mike Tyson, once said that in order to succeed greatly, you need to be prepared to fail greatly. And if you can't do both, then you got a problem.
The reality is we all go through failures. Every single person in this room has experienced failure in their life. The question you have to ask yourself, though, is when you get knocked down, when you're facing that failure, are you going to stay down?
Or are you going to get back up on your feet? If you haven't failed in life, you haven't lived. Because failure tells us that we've taken a risk.
That we're still challenging our own limitations. It's only when we cross the boundary of our comfort zone that we begin to open the lid of who we are.
And rid yourself of the box that everyone tells you to think outside of. And history favors the risk takers. Because only those who risk going too far can find out how far we can actually go.
You'll never read about anyone throughout history who successfully inspired change.
Because they followed the crowd.
Because they played it safe.
Because they cared too much about what other people thought about them. Remember that your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life.
It's only when you jump blindly from your nest that you can experience the act of flying.
You just have to be willing to spread your wings and trust that you're meant to soar to heights you never thought possible from the comfort of your fear.
Don't allow the things that scare you to keep you grounded. Instead, become like the Wright brothers after their first crash and be willing to collide into the dirt.
To turn the toughest moments of your life into the burst of wind you need to get you airborne.
So that one day you can see what the bottom looks like from the clouds.
And even though you know your eyes can't see past the horizon, it doesn't mean that the world ends at the sunset. They won't teach you this in school.
You can't sign up for Failure 101, only audit and observe, so when you graduate,
you can navigate the real world, the place where 99% of the things you will experience aren't taught.
The place where you will find that the rules and lessons you learned in school
don't apply. Because in school, the most successful students are the people who make the fewest mistakes.
But in life, the most successful professionals are the people who learn to turn their mistakes into masterpieces. Artists who have discovered that you can't really figure out how something works until you
break
it apart.
And they'll probably call you crazy for your beliefs, because that's what passion inspires.
It inspires the outrageous,
the wild,
and it turns the impossible into the incredible,
like cell phones and spaceships.
Or sharing parts of yourself with complete strangers, and in the process, becoming friends.
That's what happens when you take risks. Sometimes you create amazing things that change the way we live, but often we fail.
You have to. Because mistakes are a part of the learning process.
Success
and failure,
they hold hands. You just have to be willing to jump off the deep end.
Because pearls don't lie on the seashore.
If you want one, you have to dive to the bottom and take it. It's only when you dig deep that you can plant the seeds that will grow into something beautiful.
And will guarantee that when you wake up in the morning,
you still feel alive. It doesn't matter where you start.
It doesn't matter where you end.
What matters most
is what you do in between.
The steps it took you to get to wherever you are.
And the times you got back up after you fell.
So dust yourself off. Start chasing your dreams.
And start living a life that will leave you with a smile on your face
and a strong heartbeat in your chest. And start that life today. Start by taking a risk.
Start by learning from your failures.
And start to appreciate the scars you have that remind you that you lived a life worth living.
Thank you.
Even if I'm not there, it doesn't mean I'm not with you. I truly believe that. That's why for me, I believe in life after death, not so much because of some mystical thing, but because I believe that the energy of who we are becomes a part of the world and the people that we've connected with.
Yeah, so I didn't know that that's what Gabe was going to share, but I think that was dope. That is my other brother, our other brother who we lost, Mr. Kirk Vladimir, one half of Kinetic Effect, also one of the co-founders of Speak It Forward. And him and Gabe not only accepted me in as a brother, but right before Kirk's passing, they had an idea of bringing me up as co-director within Speak It Forward. And so with that, I just want to say we are continuing to work. We love you, Kirk. Thank you so much, Gabe, for sharing that and sharing that with community. That was that meant a lot. That was special. I have closing remarks. This has been the Kalamazoo Poetry Festival 2021. And that was very solemn, but that was dope. Everybody, just all this evening has been amazing. This is from the wreckage, and from the wreckage, you see we have community standing strong in solidarity, in this collaborative effort to bring so much together and offer so much for community. And once again, I hope you smiled. I hope you thought. I hope you cared. I hope that this provoked some type of action behind this. Perhaps you'll be one of the ones contributing next year for the Kalamazoo Poetry Festival. So closing remarks, I want to make sure we shout out. We would like to thank all the individual donors and organizational sponsors for making this festival possible. Please be sure to tune in to our open mic tonight at 8 p.m. And all of the other Kalamazoo Poetry Festival events tomorrow. And because I have like 1 minute, I wanted to say something. I wasn't asked. I'm just kind of doing it since I get closing remarks and I'm the host. So I just wanted to ask a question in the form of a piece that I made. And that is, if the sun wanted to come out at night and the moon said, all right, then where would your day begin? Where would you stand? On what you knew to be true, or would you just simply give in? Switch everything around, wake up, feel down. Being left is now right. Sight provides sound. Eyes are the new ears. See what I'm saying? Probably not through the tears. If a book wanted to be read cover to cover, like a man wants to be understood, and like a woman wants you to love her, would you stand on what you knew to be real? Stay true to yourself and how you really feel? If the sun and moon decided they should be something different, it won't affect me. That's where I'm at in my life. So from the wreckage, I stand. Shouts out to everybody that came and shared tonight. Again, my name is Ed Genesis. I have been your host for this celebration of community for the Kalamazoo Poetry Festival. Peace.